Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel, or welcome to my channel if you are new here. I hope you're all doing so well. Welcome back to another true crime and makeup episode. Today, this case, I had never heard of it before. Like, it's very humbling when I've not heard of a case before. I don't like it, but I thought I'd share it with you guys in case yous were the same, although I'm sure yous are already aware of this case. Today I'm covering the case of Pedro Rodrigues Filho. He was a serial killer, but he was a different kind of serial killer. Now, Pedro Filho, he was described as the perfect criminal. He murdered at least 70 people. 10 of these were before the age of 18, and 47 of them would be his prison inmates. Now, when it come to murder, Pedro had some rules, apparently, according to him. He would only murder bad people. So he would murder murderers, rapists, and drug dealers. If they didn't meet that criteria, in his eyes they were completely innocent and didn't deserve to die. But if they met that criteria, they deserved exactly what was coming to them. Now, Pedro has stated that he believes that he's more of a vigilante than he is a serial killer. And when he was finally released from prison, he started a YouTube channel. #influencer. But he started a channel discussing his life of crime, his imprisonment, what he had done, and he basically became like an anti-crime advocate and advised people not to follow in his footsteps. However, at the age of 68, Pedro would be murdered in front of his relative's house, and his murder still remains unsolved. This case is super interesting. Like, I found this one fascinating, and what's even more fascinating is this man, he inspired the TV series Dexter, the criminal who kills criminals, but only bad criminals. But yeah, kind of crazy. If you do enjoy my videos, please don't forget to subscribe to my channel, leave a like, leave a comment, put the notification bell on so you don't miss when I upload, which is every Wednesday and Sunday, 7:30 PM British Standard Time. But I think without any further rambling and any further ado, let's get into the case of Pedro Rodrigues Filho. So, Pedro Rodrigues Filho was born on October the 29th, 1954, and he was born in Santa Rita do Sapucaí, and this was south of Minas Gerais. Now, it was known from the very moment that Pedro was born, he was not going to have an easy life whatsoever. Like, it was evident from the moment he exited the womb. He was actually born with a severely bruised skull, and it was due to the beatings that his father would administer to his mother while she was pregnant with him. I will never understand, like, men or women who abuse each other, and especially to abuse a woman who is pregnant, like, is just a whole different level of sick. But regarding his general upbringing, there's not a whole lot of information out there, but with the way his father was, it definitely wasn't smooth sailing. And by the time that Pedro was 13, he was already having strong urges and a strong desire to commit murder. And one day, age 13, he nearly acts on this. So one day Pedro was out with his older cousin and they were just like hanging around, and they got into a fight over something, and this fight escalated very quickly, and Pedro, he ended up pushing his cousin into a sugarcane press. So this is something that would have crushed him to death, and Pedro, he was more than willing to leave him there to die, but at the very last second, he saved his cousin. Now, I asked myself, did he really want to save him? Or was he scared of getting caught? Or did he wind up having a bit of guilt? Was it because it was family? Or was he just not ready to fully commit the murder just yet? I don't know, what do you think? So whilst he didn't fully commit to the murder when he was 13, just a year later when he was 14 years old, he would go through with his first murder, and it was a big one. It was a big one. So this day comes around and Filho takes his father's shotgun from the house and he walks down to the city hall in Santa Rita with the sole purpose that he is going to shoot the deputy mayor of the town of Santa Rita. Now you might be thinking, like I was at the time, why the deputy mayor of the hometown? Like, why so specific? Well, Philo's father, he had actually worked as a school security guard. Now, the deputy mayor of the hometown, he had him fired over accusations that Philo's father had been stealing food from the school kitchen. And the deputy mayor had made such a spectacle of this, I suppose, that Philo's father could not get work anywhere else. So their family's struggling. Like, you know, they need 2 incomes and it's just not happening, and the deputy mayor, he's stopping this. So Philo, with the shotgun, proceeds to shoot the deputy mayor and also another security guard who he believed actually stole the food. How do you, like, Pedro, how do you know? Were you there? How do you know? And like, I get why you'd be annoyed, but, you know, killing's extreme anyway. But what doesn't make sense to me is, as stated in the beginning, Pedro said that he only killed horrific criminals, you know, rapists, drug dealers, murderers. This guy just fired his dad. Like, come on. So as you can probably guess, after this murder of 2 people, he is now a wanted man. He's a fugitive and he decides to go on the run. So he flees to Mogi das Cruzes, which is in Sao Paulo, Brazil. And it was here in Sao Paulo where his killing streak would continue and just keep growing, to be honest. Like, it gets extreme. Yeah. Honestly though, like at this point, I'm just thinking maybe if his cousin had like reported him for the attempted murder, then maybe he might have got like the help that he needed. But I mean, what's a bit of attempted murder with family, you know? No big deal. Now, in Sao Paulo, this is where Philo would go on to rob drug dens and he would kill any drug dealers that he encountered because he believes that they are up there with some of the worst criminals. So he just took them all out as he came across them. Now, because of this, he became quite the celebrity in Brazil, particularly Sao Paulo. And this actually earned him the name in the media as a vigilante called Pedrinho Matador. And apparently this means little Petey killer. But I might have, yeah, I've maybe crossed a wire there. I don't know. It kind of sounds like someone's rap name, Lil P Killer. Now, between all the drug den robberies, the drug dealer murders, and just the general madness in Philo's life, he does still make time for love. Aww. So he falls in love with a woman by the name of Maria Aparecida Olympia, which is like such a pretty name. Now, Philo had his very own little nickname for Maria. He would call her Botina, which I, again, was like, oh, like, I love when people have cute little nicknames. What does it mean? So I went on Google and I translated it, and apparently it means little boot. Little boot. Like, am I translating on the wrong page here? Like, is that what it means? Do I again have a crosswire? Because I don't know what it means in Brazil, but over here in Scotland, if you called someone a little boot, that's quite the offence. You might get battered for that. But for the most part, they both seemed really happy and content together. They were both living with each other as well, and this seemed to be going quite good. Shortly after, Maria became pregnant with their child. Now, devastatingly, Maria would actually be murdered by a rival gang leader who was looking to get revenge on Philo. Now, of course, this left Philo absolutely devastated and in bits. I mean, it's not just the murder of his girlfriend, but also the murder of his unborn child. And this left him with an even bigger thirst for murder and revenge. It honestly made me so sad reading that about Maria being murdered, because she's literally been murdered simply for her association with Philo. And there's just no need. Like, listen, I don't want anyone to murder anyone, right? But just go after the person that you want revenge on. Don't go after their associates or people that they are associated with. Now, obviously, at this point, Pedro Rodrigues Filho, he wants revenge and justice for the murder of Maria, the mother of his child. So his plan is that he's going to track down every single member of this rival gang and torture and murder them all until he finds the leader who killed her. Now, it took some time, but Filho, he did not give up. He was tracking these people down, and he did wind up tracking down every single member of the rival gang, including the one who murdered Maria, and he brutally tortured and murdered them all. Yes. So, like, that's the revenge spree done. Put down the weapons, Pedro, and step back. But he doesn't. And did I mention that all these gang murders that he was doing, Pedro was still under the age of 18. Yeah, he wasn't even 18 by the time he had killed all of those men. What? I can only apologise at how bad these wings do not match, but that's a whole different tale. So on the 24th of May 1973, Pedro would finally be arrested and imprisoned for the very first time after this whole string of murders that he's done. But when I tell you his thirst for revenge had times by 100 when he was in prison, that might actually be an understatement. So when Pedro was in prison, he had actually found out that his father had murdered his mother with a machete. When he heard this, smoke was coming out, like he was fuming, furious beyond belief, and he knew at that moment right there that he had to murder his dad, because not only has Maria been taken from him, now his mum, like the two most important women in his life, have just been taken from him. Now, unfortunately for Pedro's father, he was imprisoned in the same prison at the same time. And at one point, Pedro actually stated, "I killed my father in prison. I was already in prison by then. I've spent 42 years in prison. My father was in prison, so I arranged a very well thought out little plan and I turned up at his cell. I had promised revenge on my mother's coffin." Now, when he showed up at his father's prison cell, he proceeded to stab his father 22 times. He then ripped his father's heart out of his chest and bit into it and just chewed it up. Like, I'm sorry, what? And regarding this, he had later said, "I just chewed it. I cut the tip off of his heart and chewed it, and I then threw it on top of his body." Now, let's actually just go back to the 24th of May 1973 very, very quickly, and let's talk about when Pedro was on his way to prison. So on his way to prison, he was obviously in a police car, but he was in the police car with two other criminals. Now, one of these criminals happened to be a rapist. Yeah, we know this man's gonna die, right? We know it. This guy, he is no more. And honestly, I'm no mad at that one because I have absolutely no regard for rapists whatsoever. I believe that they should be executed and burning in hell, but hey-ho. Now, Pedro had obviously found this out, like, on the journey there. Do you know that whole, like, what are you in for? Tell me what you're in for. They done that, and then the guy was like, I'm a rapist. Now, I really wanted to find out how he killed this guy, because once the police open the police car door, they just see the guy lying there dead. And Pedro's kind of like, yeah, I killed him. He's a rapist. I done God's work. I took him off the streets. But I was so shook. I was like, how the hell do you murder in the back of a police car and not get caught? Did the police just allow it? If I was on duty, I might just allow it. Shouldn't say that. Of course I wouldn't. I would follow the law, but I'd want to. Now, not only were rapists the criminals that Pedro despised the most, he was now going to be brought into a building full of them. Do we think this man is going to let those men live? Probably not. Now, it is reported and stated that Pedro Rodrigues Filho, during his time incarcerated, he killed 47 of his fellow inmates. 47. Rapists, murderers, drug dealers. 47 of them. Gone. I mean, at least now the prison can't use overcrowding as an excuse to let the worst people out, because Pedro's done away with them all. Now, the 47 inmates that he had killed in prison, that would make up most of his murder count, let's call it that. And Philo did later state that every single person he killed were criminals that deserved to die. Every single one, according to him, deserved to die. Now, as I had said in the beginning, Pedro Rodrigues Filho, his whole thing was that he would only go after bad people. And Filho would later claim that he would never, ever, ever murder someone who is truly innocent. So someone who's done a crime lesser than what I've stated, or just a random individual on the street. That's not how he operated. However, what makes me question this, shall we say, is the fact that Filho had a tattoo that said "Mato por prazer." This meant, I kill for pleasure. So if you kill for pleasure, you're like a bloodlust killer who just wants to kill everyone in sight because it invokes pleasure in you. Yet you're saying you're this like technical, like they have to meet a brief, wouldn't kill an innocent person. Your tattoo tells us different, so why have you got the tattoo, sir? You know, when he said that, I'd be like, can you just roll up your sleeve and show us that again, because that's telling me different. Pedro himself even stated the only reason that he killed was out of anger and revenge, not for bloodlust or enjoyment. But your tattoo, we're coming back to the tattoo, your tattoo says that you kill for pleasure. So what is it? If I was Pedro and I was feeling like a hypocrite, I'd be getting that lasered off. So initially, Filho was being sentenced to 128 years in prison, and then the murders that he committed whilst in prison brought his sentence up to 400 years in prison. However, at the time, the Brazilian law stated the maximum prison sentence that anyone could serve would be 30 years. This is now increased to 40, but back at this time it was 30. Like, how can he kill all these people and still, like, 30 years is your max? Make it make sense. Now, what I find even more insane is that Pedro Filho, he would only serve an extra 4 years in prison for the killings that he committed whilst in prison. 47 killings, he got 4 extra years. That's not teaching anyone a lesson. So Filho was released from prison on the 24th of April 2007, and when he was released, he immediately went and got himself a job. So he was like a caretaker or like a watchman. Now, as I'm sure we can all imagine, Pedro was pretty notorious in Brazil, not just for the amount of people that he killed, but for the type of people he killed. And once he was released from prison, he became like an anti-crime advocate. He would speak very openly and honestly about his life of crime. He would try and convince others not to follow the same path as what he did. And like at this point, Pedro's a bit of a celebrity. He's got a wee bit of status about him. So much so that the TV series Dexter was inspired by Pedro Rodrigues Filho. You know, because in Dexter, he only kills bad people, and they kind of based that off Pedro. But yeah, he was kind of loving his newfound celebrity status. I have to say, I'm actually a bit embarrassed to admit that I think I've only ever watched like one episode of Dexter. So if it's worth a watch, let me know and I will watch it. I don't know. I would try and watch it because it's crime related and I love anything crime related, but I'd always just go back to Criminal Minds. It's like my favourite. Now, on the 15th of September 2011, Pedro Rodrigues Filho would actually be arrested again, and he was arrested from his rural home, and he would be arrested on multiple charges. So the charges that Pedro was facing were riot and deprivation of liberty, threatening others, and also illegal possession of weapons. I look like the Milky Bar kid right now. Why did I do that? And like I don't need that area highlighted that much. So out of prison again and a free man once more, Filho decides he's going to dip his toe into the YouTube pond. That's right. He created a YouTube channel and his channel was called Pedrinho X Matador. Now Pedro, he would use this channel to basically, again, discuss his life of crime, the crimes that he committed, his regrets with the crimes that he committed, and he would basically beg people not to follow in his footsteps, not to go down the route of a life of crime, and he told them how terrible it was. He basically used his life story as a cautionary tale for others to learn from without having to make the mistakes. Now, to any outsiders looking in, it really did appear as though Pedro Filho was trying to get his life together. He really wanted to make changes for the better, apparently. And unfortunately, his attempt to make these positive changes and also have a positive influence on people in the world, his attempt would be cut short. Now, on the 5th of March 2023, Pedro Rodrigues Filho would actually be murdered. And his murder would take place right outside one of his relatives' homes in Sao Paulo. Now, at this point, Pedro Filho was 68 years old and his throat was slashed, and he also sustained several gunshot wounds which had been shot from an assailant's black car. Now, the assailants who were in the car, they fled immediately. Now, later on, police would find the car that was used in the drive-by, I suppose, and they also found several bullets, like a whole cache of bullets, and it was the same bullets that had been used to shoot Pedro Filho. And despite the police finding the evidence from his murder, they were not able to capture the people responsible. Now, it was said that the anonymous assailants that had murdered Filho had actually said to Filho's relative, "It's nothing to do with you. Take your daughter and go inside." Did this family member not get a good look at them? Or did he get a good look but they had masks on so it wasn't really a good look? I need to know. And until this very day, which I know is only a year later, just over a year later, but they still don't know who killed Pedro Rodrigues Filho. Who do we think it could be? So as you can probably imagine, the case of Pedro Filho is one that's very controversial with people, because some people believe, well, he's only killing bad people, can we really be that annoyed with him? Then other people think, well, murder is murder regardless. You don't have a right to take someone's life. That's why the police is there, the law's there, the justice system's there. But he was just taking the law into his own hands. How do I feel about Pedro? I don't know, because as much as I'm rapists, murderers, burn them, execute them, get them off the streets, and I do feel like that, but when it comes to someone actually doing it, it kind of makes me feel it's wrong. What he's doing is still wrong. I don't know, because he's saying he kills murderers, but he's also a murderer, But I would love to know what you guys think of Pedro Filho down below, because I feel like there's going to be a few mixed comments. Also, let me know what you think happened to him. I'm thinking it could have been a rival gang coming after him, especially with all the information he was releasing kind of about his life of crime. They maybe felt like they were getting implemented or sussed out or something like that. So I just really want to know what you think. But that's it for our true crime and makeup episode. I really hope you enjoyed this one, and by enjoyed, of course, I just mean I hope it was interesting. I hope I've maybe brought one to your knowledge that you weren't aware of before, or at least done the case some justice. If you did enjoy, please don't forget to like, comment and subscribe. Put the notification bell on so you don't miss when I upload, which is every Wednesday and Sunday, 7:30 British Standard Time. If you have any case suggestions, you can leave them in the comments below, or you can send them over to my email. I have a list that's about 3 A4 pages long of cases that you've suggested, and even just ones that I've thought of or my family suggested, so let's just keep adding some. Keep me busy. Down below in the description you will also find my social media handles, so my Instagram and my TikTok if you wish to give me a follow there. Any product details of what I've used on my face today are also listed down below with a direct link. They're not affiliate links, they're just links, so you don't have to search the whole internet for what I've used on my face. But I really hope you enjoyed this one. Please don't forget to share with your family or friends if they enjoy true crime or makeup. I would be so appreciative if you could maybe share one of my videos or share my channel somewhere, just to really boost the algorithm, get the channel out there a wee bit. I would appreciate that. But until the next one, be a good person, don't be a bad person, stay safe, look after each other, and I'll see you later. Bye!